I saw those college kids booing commencement speakers talking about AI, and I thought, honestly, same. I understand. At the time of me recording this, it's May of 2026, right in the peak of graduation season, and there have been various clips of commencement speeches going around where the speakers are talking to the students about AI and AI is revolutionary and they need to embrace it with both arms. And oftentimes, those speakers are being met with a series of boos. Now, what's interesting is that some people completely understand where the boos are coming from, and other people are clueless, like they're closing their eyes, walking in the dark, not understanding what's happening. So, in today's video, I want to break down not just the 5 reasons why I think this is happening from the student's perspective, but also as a Latina woman in my 40s who works with clients and speaks in companies, primarily to those who have been the first and only, to Black and Brown women who are in corporate and face similar struggles, how the reasons that the graduates booed aren't very different from why we might be booing ourselves when we hear about AI is the next best thing. Now, first, a little background. I've spent over 20 years working in corporate America, working specifically in marketing functions, and I own my own business where I help people build a personal brand and their communication skills, which are two things that back when I first started this in 2017, I didn't realize how important they would be in 2026 and beyond. Oftentimes, when people ask me how to future proof themselves, I cite personal branding and communication as the two biggest things. And little did I know back then in 2017, when I was first starting this journey, that they were going to be the most crucial skills for people to be able to develop right now. There is no article that can truly predict the next best jobs of the next 5 or 10 years like we used to have. All the cards have been shuffled. The snow globe has been shook, and we don't know where we're going to end up today, tomorrow, 5 years, or 10 years from now. So let's go back to these commencement speeches. The one that stands out most particularly is the former CEO of Google. He spoke at the University of Arizona's commencement and he was met with boos. And then he got defensive and asked people, "Can you just let me finish?" As if somehow the rest of the words that were going to come out of his mouth were going to do anything to change the very real feelings that those college graduates felt as they're listening to someone talk to them on their very big day, the day when school officially ends and they are thrust out into the real world again. For those people who don't understand, I want to break down the 5 biggest reasons as to why I think graduates are feeling this way. The first, this guy, he's not reading the room. The number one thing when you are a college graduate, you either hope that you've graduated with a job or you want to enter a market where you will find a job. You have come out of school with student loans. You want to figure out how you're going to start the next phase of your life. And every article that talks about AI, either within that article themselves or an article right beside it, is also talking about the number of companies that are laying people off. Why? Because of AI. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying AI isn't a useful tool. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it. But when we're thinking about what people are really feeling when they hear this everywhere they go, I want to be honest and I want to be transparent about the thoughts that are happening with people. So maybe you're watching this as a decision maker, as a CEO of a company. This will help give you some insight into the hearts and minds of not only what young people are feeling, but I also would bet many people throughout the generations are feeling the same way. Or you could be watching this as a woman who's in corporate America right now, trying to navigate the very real realities of AI coming at you as fast as possible. What Eric Schmidt isn't recognizing in his commencement address is that when companies continuously say they're creating operational efficiencies, they're reducing redundancies within the organization by now employing AI. Every time you're employing AI, someone else is being let go. And whether it's Meta letting off people up to 10,000 at a time, or other companies in the hundreds or low thousands, those are all people that are now displaced, left to figure out what their next step is going to be. We already know that sentiments for people, young people especially, 70% are soured on AI. They don't want to hear about it. They're not a fan. And part of the reason is because where are they going to get a job? How are they going to figure out their place in the world where every single industry continues to be disrupted by the inclusion of AI in their worlds? We're talking anywhere from manufacturing to healthcare to doctors to artists. All of that has been impacted in some form or fashion. And if it hasn't touched your industry just yet, it's coming. And we know that if you're a Black or brown woman, the way that AI affects you is completely disproportionate to other people. The statistics are already showing that Black and brown women are more likely to be let go first more than anything else. Now, on top of that, then you have to think about the hiring practices. And as AI is embedded into different hiring practices, we are already seeing the results of studies that are showing that the AI is biased against certain groups of people. So you're listening to someone as a young person talk to you about embrace AI, knowing at the same time that AI could be actively working against you based off of your ethnicity, your last name, your background, your zip code, and so many other factors. So if you're in the company, you need to worry. If you want to find a job someplace else, you need to worry. And again, this is just bringing the tension up. And of course, you're going to get boos. And for someone who is supposed to be so innovative and so creative, to not read the room in that way and to lack the EQ and emotional empathy to realize how young people are receiving your message, well, that's a whole nother video for another time. Now, the second reason why I believe the students are booing is we're creating a very homogenized culture where everything is starting to look and sound the same. Now, I'm sure you've already heard things like AI slop. In AI slop, we can all determine what's AI slop or not, which is when something sounds exactly the same. And so there are these clues that are out there. For example, the word delve. Delve is showing up more frequently, not just in people's writing, but now also in people's vocabulary. Because when we're putting something into whatever your AI is of choice, ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, you're getting an output that is using words like delve. And the reason is, or it's structuring the output in a certain way that is creating patterns, and people are picking up on the patterns saying, this is AI generated. Now, again, the idea may be original, which is what we're hoping for, but the output is starting to be structured very much in the same way. And it's not just written output, but what's happening is things are starting to look the same. Instead of being able to see differences and appreciation for the different ways people write or they tell a story, you're starting to see that it all is evening out to the same look. A recent article even showed that 81% of all cars are being manufactured as gray, black, or white. So slowly we're starting to see color removed from our worlds in place of these very standard colors. Now, why is that? Again, it's because the data is saying these are the colors that work for people. Also, it is cheaper to manufacture these colors. We don't have to have such a wide array of a palette. And again, through the use of technology and everything being put into a blender and sifted out, now we can start outputting the same exact thing. We see it in the written word. We're going to see it in the way our buildings and architecture looks, our automobiles, and it's going to continue to go on. Now, the third piece, and I could spend all day talking about this, is what is AI doing to our arts and culture? It used to be that someone who was creative was on this side of the lunchroom counter, and someone who was the brainier kid or the nerdier kid was on the other side of the counter. Now, so layoffs in the job market, that's a very real reason, and probably reason number one why most people are skeptical and nervous and even have a lot of anxiety about AI. It's hard to predict the direction that AI is going to go so that you can get on the train with it when it is changing and evolving so rapidly. So the second reason I want to talk about is what does it look like if everything was just one culture? And here's what I mean. We are moving towards a very homogenized society, specifically here in the United States, where there's a lack of regulation around AI. One of the things that I'm particularly noticing, and other people have noticed it too, is the use of AI slop. Now, it's not just that people are depending on Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT more often, it's the output that it's delivering. And what's happening is it's flattening out how everyone sounds. It's the same structure, it's the same patterns, it's even the use of the word delve. I recently watched a TED Talk where the man who was speaking talked about the word delve and how the people who were programming the majority of AI were from other countries. And in their country, they use the word delve quite a bit. So now you'll notice that for output, delve will show up more and more often. And people are not just using it in their writing, but they're starting to use it in their everyday speech when they weren't before. So there's lists everywhere. You can go online and find top ways that you can know if something was written by AI. And again, it flattens everything out. It becomes very homogenized when you're starting to see the structure of stories told in the same exact way, when captions that you read, and even scripts that people will recite into videos just like this on social media or YouTube are told the very exact same way. It's starting to flatten out the way we look and sound and relate to one another. Now, another piece in this homogenized culture and this flattening out of things is I noticed this very recently. I was in the market for a new car. My lease was up. I needed to get a new car. And I noticed that on the dealership, on the lot of the dealership, all of the car colors were the same. It was black, it was charcoal gray, maybe the occasional silver and white. And I remember thinking, I wasn't in the market to get a colorful car, but where are they? I distinctly remember growing up as a kid, and there were greens and blues and golds and many more colors in between. There were these teal cars that were all the rage, these Honda Accord teal cars when I was growing up in New York City. And I distinctly remember those. But now, as I was in the lot, gray, white, black, and that was it. I then took my unscientific approach and started to observe what I was seeing out on the road. And again, more and more, I was seeing the same amount of colors. And then recently, I came across a social media post that talked about the removal of color from our country. And it showed before and afters what architecture used to look like, where it was reds and golds and greens, and there were vibrant streets contrasted with the grays and dark grays that we see now. They showed the inside of homes when you used to have a colorful refrigerator or colorful cabinetry or linoleum tiles. And now again, the aesthetic has changed into whites and creams. The flattening or homogeneous way of now color has been stripped out and everything is starting to look very uniform, very much the same, and without, I'd say, personality that used to be there before. So 81% of cars are now only those colors that I talked about before. 81% of new cars are produced only in those colors that I mentioned. And of course, it has to do with cost. It's easier to produce a limited number of colors. But why those colors? What does that do to us psychologically to have a more muted look and feel to everything that we experience? I also invite you to observe when you start to see color and you go into people's homes and you see a more vibrant color palette. What is it that you think? Is it shocking? Is it pleasing? Do you want to come home to the warm, comfy confines of your all beige home? So, again, as we start to think about AI, it flattens things out, which leads me into my third reason. The third reason why I feel college graduates and young people in particular have this strong feeling against AI is because of what it does to arts and culture. It used to be when we think back to high school many years ago of the and on the other side of the lunchroom, those were your smart, brainy kids. So it was divided into two halves. And hopefully there was crossover in between. But generally speaking, when you think of old college, high school films, it was generally split into these two worlds. Now, what's happened? We've started to see technology slowly start to move into the creative arts. And then all of a sudden, they crossed over that line into the other side of the lunchroom, and they were enmeshed with everything related to creativity and to the arts. And what does that mean? You start to see movies that all look the same now. Where are the rom-coms? I loved a rom-com. Where are the comedies that used to be there? Now everything is about IP, having your own intellectual property that looks like a Marvel film or a Superman film and all of those typical genres that we have seen. Sometimes I have to ask myself, how old am I? Because I have seen about 50, 11 versions of Batman, and we are still out here cranking those same movies again and again. I personally crave original ideas. Even if I don't like the movie, I am more apt to see something that's original simply because I'm so tired of seeing the same things over and over. But what technology is looking at is one, we can make movies faster if scripts are AI generated, if we can rely on certain formulas to create things, if the algorithm starts to define what our movies look like, what our music sounds like, our social media algorithm, and how we structure videos and make sure we have the hook and all of these components are in the right places. We even start to think about how it influences fashion. When we think about uniforms that are made, or even clothing designers, are we pulling out the color? Are we craving more? I have to admit, as someone who grew up my entire life in New York City, I was that person who loved walking around in blacks and grays and navies. But as I've gotten older, and I used to think actually that it was because I got older, but now I wonder if my desire to wear more color, to reach for a bolder palette, to want to wear something that's brighter and more expressive, is truly based in this idea of seeing everything become, again, so flattened out. So when we think about arts and culture, how often are we really relying on those creators and the artists the way that we used to before? Or now are we running our ideas through AI? Ben Affleck recently sold his AI company to Netflix for an astronomical over $600 million deal. And he says that it's not going to impact the movies that are made. It's only going to create a better movie because more focus can be placed on the actors and the acting. But what's missing from that equation is that the AI that he's been able to develop with his company is now going to be able to change the backgrounds you have a film. So not the same way green screen can do it, but simply decide we're going to change a day from cloudy to sunny. We're not going to have to dress sets anymore, which essentially means like all of the things you see behind me, this painting over here or a candle over here, all of that can be AI generated. The overhead scenes, we're going to be able to create something else again through a series of prompts that you can add in that will fill in those blanks when it comes to a movie. Now, on one hand, you could say, wow, we're going to be able to get through post production so much faster than we ever did before. And to that, I say, for every single innovation you've created within this company, you've also eliminated jobs. What is going to happen now to the person who used to dress sets? Or the scouting location person who found places where the film could shoot? There's so many more jobs that I'm unfamiliar with that I know will be impacted by a technology such as this. And the question that no one ever seems to have an answer to is what happens to those people? When you lose your job, what happens to you? The thought is, well, they'll just find another job. But I want someone to truly answer the question for me. If you're in an industry, in a specific industry where you dress sets, or you're someone who's a scout, someone who scouts locations, I want you to answer the question, what are they going to do? What is the next job that they can do within their field? Or are you asking or expecting that person learn an entirely different skill? Now I'm all about innovation. I understand and embrace that we have to roll with changes. But when the changes are happening this rapidly, it feels as if we're on a seesaw and all of the weight has just been distributed to one side and other people are just dangling in the air and they don't know what they're going to do. And as soon as you get off, they crash into the ground. I want us to solve for both sides of the equation, not just the one. There are articles and schools and programs that help you create your own songs. I knew someone who worked in a completely different industry. We were having a conversation and he shared with me, he said, Mo, Um, I have a pseudonym, and you can find me on Spotify, and I create music under this other name. These songs are all AI generated, by the way. And I thought, that's so interesting. I asked, do you play any instruments? He said, no. I said, do you write any of the songs? He said, well, I have some ideas, but basically I just type a couple prompts in and then it generates a song for me. I tweak it here and there and I post it on Spotify. Not too long ago, there was an entire faux artist. I think it was a duo that was out there streaming millions and millions of streams, and it was a completely AI generated group. So, what does it do when we start living by these algorithms? When our movies, when our design of what our homes look like and architecture starts to look like, and fashion and social media and music and all of paintings and culture start to be run through a machine where, again, the output isn't looking to create new ideas, it's the intention is to create something fast. And we've slowly started to see this change throughout the years. When we think about music, when technology gets in bed with the arts, and not just gets in bed, but essentially buys the art houses, see studios that are merging together, tech companies that are now buying movie houses, and the influence of what it means to be beholden to a certain dollar amount, to have to maintain a certain stock price. To reach that bar, to make the shareholders happy, things need to shift from the business side. And when we're now focused on business, it leaves less space to focus on the art. And again, we can see this throughout every single area related to arts and culture. We're even starting to see it in our sports, in our entertainment in all facets, and how children are playing. But the change that has occurred through things like AI coming into the arts field, determining what culture is going to look like based off of algorithms, based off of trends that a machine is deciding, is losing the individuality, the creativity, the innovation, the spark, the out of the box eccentric ideas that people have. And it will become harder and harder and harder for us to hear and find those voices when everything from the algorithm is being shoved to say, look at this, and makes everything else harder to find. I liken it to when I used to go to the beach as a kid in New York City. There was the people who would have the machine looking for pieces of gold or any metal to see if they could find jewelry or loose change or watches that people had dropped. It feels like when we do this and AI becomes embedded in our arts and our culture, we are that person on the stand with the little machine trying to find your very own slice of gold. Now, the fourth reason for students and also us that are in our 40s should be concerned is AI is now manipulating healthcare. So, in the name of efficiencies, what's also happening is efficiencies and cost savings usually go hand in hand. And I've started to see more and more companies use and employ AI to deny claims, to make policies stricter, to not allow people to even opt in to certain healthcare, especially if it's independent healthcare due to pre-existing conditions. Now, you could say this has all existed in some form or fashion before, and you wouldn't be wrong. However, what's happening now is that it's being expedited. It's able to become less of a personalized decision and more of an algorithmic decision to make these cuts. And AI, again, it makes things faster, it makes it sharper, it dehumanizes the impact. And so, very quickly, it's not me talking to a rep, it's a rep talking to a machine where AI has determined you are no longer eligible for healthcare, or those benefits you had before, you seem a little risky now, and they're no longer going to be afforded to you. And we see this happening more and more. Now, at the same time, what's happening in the United States, and I can only speak to what's happening here in the country where I am, is that health is changing. The quality of our food and water and air is changing. When you have those things that are causing increased risk of health challenges, and then now there's someone on the other side of it saying we're going to deny coverage, we're going to limit coverage that people have based off of AI determining you don't qualify anymore. These conditions don't match. We're going to have so many people here sitting outside the bubble and only a few people that are here able to get coverage. My entire life, there has been an argument as to who is entitled to health care, as if we can all agree that at some point we will all be ill. At some point, we will all face the same end. And we still struggle to have that humanity, to find a space where we can afford the dignity for people to get the care that they deserve. With AI in place, it only makes it more difficult for people. And then the last piece is who's real. Often we talk about this need and this desire and this pull for authenticity, to know that the relationship that I have with you is sincere and it's rooted in real connection, not manufactured connection. But more and more what's happening whenever we start to give our photos to AI or we post more things on social media, we're starting to see all of our data taken, and now we have AI generated avatars. We see advertisements and accounts of people that we may think are real, but we don't know. For me personally, there's one account that I follow that has tremendous information. I genuinely enjoy the account. And at the same time, I wonder, is this person real? Because every time I see her, it's exactly the same. There's really no difference in how she presents, in the intonation in her voice, in the look in her eye, that I wonder, is this person real? I almost want her to ask her, can you hold up a piece of paper with the date? Because I'm not quite sure if what I'm listening to is real or not. And this is me with this eagle eye trying to specifically look for things. And still I wonder. What's going to happen more and more frequently is we're not going to need to have paid actors in commercials anymore. We'll be able to prompt it, and through the push of a button and the collection of inputs that's already there, commercials will be generated. We'll be able to create relationships on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and we won't actually know if the person we're talking to is real or someone who's AI generated. So when we think about what it would be like for us as we continue on with our careers, as we're building friendships, as we're trying to maintain normal day-to-day connections with people, I understand why the boos are there. So when the students are there and they're booing commencement speakers because all they're being told is AI is here, embrace it, it's the new industrial revolution. It's for all of these reasons: layoffs, the job force, homogenized cultures, the removal or the insertion of technology into arts and culture, healthcare changes and manipulation, and lastly, trying to determine who's real and who's not, and the lack of connection and connectivity that comes with that. Those are the reasons why I boo. Not because I don't understand the ways that I can become more productive, but I boo because I know who is impacted by AI the most. I know that in the workforce right now, those who come from backgrounds just like mine, usually underrepresented, marginalized groups, have the most impact. And I also boo because I have not heard a satisfactory answer from private entities, nor public companies, nor our government as to what is going to happen to the people who are displaced. Whether we want to believe it or not, we are all interconnected. No one is living their lives completely alone. The things that I do touch someone else, and they touch you, and then you touch someone else, and it is a spider web that reaches out where we are all in some ways connected to one another. If we can all be 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon, then you have to understand we are all 6 degrees from each other. And when we don't think about these ramifications, or we get up on stage and we deliver a message that is tone deaf, that lacks empathy, that doesn't truly think about the audience in mind and what their thoughts and fears and very real goals are, you're completely missing the mark. So for the next person who wants to give a talk about the benefits of AI, I want you to think about who you're delivering it to. And what are they thinking? And what are they feeling? And if you're someone like me in their 40s, working in corporate, helping other people, trying to figure out what your next step is going to be, I want you to take some time, reflect on what it is that I said, and then leave a comment below. I want to spend more time talking about these very real things. And the reason why I continue to be so bullish on personal brand and thought leadership and communication is because those are the things that are going to help differentiate you in what's becoming a very flat, homogenized culture. That's all. I'm going to get off my soapbox for now. I will talk to you in the next video. But if this touched you, if this meant something to you, I want you to drop a comment. And if there's someone that you know that can benefit from this, please share them, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm Monica, and I make videos for women over 40 who want to be seen, heard, and recognized for their expertise and the great work they do. Peace.